With a loud pop, the demon burst into nothingness surrounded by flames. Triumphantly, Billy turned to Paige. "You see, you were just overreacting," she bragged. The motion was sort of defeated when a vial flew inches from her ear. Turning, she saw a second demon finish vaporizing. "Right. Overreacting." Paige sighed. "How was I to know he had backup?" Billy pouted. "Honey, you weren't, but you should have at least suspected it." "At least we didn't need the power of 3, Billy began. "This time," Paige said. Her cell suddenly blared into life. Diving into her purse, she answered it, Paige Halliwell, as she and Billy orbed back to the manor. Billy didn't need to wait around long to be told off. Even before her feet had hit the landing, Piper was beginning the lecture. "Lecture," Billy blurted out, leaving Piper mid-rant as she continued down the stairs. "Yeah, well, come back tonight. I've got to finish scolding you." Piper shook her head. Being the oldest had its disadvantages. Billy wasn't even concentrating. To be honest, her mind kept wandering back to the recent events. During the last couple of months, every time she had got into any trouble, the sisters had needed to use the power of 3 to save her, stop the demon, or a combination of both. She sighed. Deep down, she wished that this power could have been hers and hers alone. But then she was also glad that the sisters were her safety net. Looking down at her absent-minded scribbling on the paper, she had inadvertently written down a question. Could the power of 3 belong to 1? The underworld was by no means a nice place to live. It might have had something to do with its occupants, but Gronders still clung on to the fact that all the bitter infighting and dying should have made it a lot more fun to live in. Instead, there were plotting factions and no good places to eat, and for a demon such as him, he needed good meals to devour. Striding through the halls, he felt the massive increase of power coming from a supposedly empty room. Peering into it, he saw a rather homely-looking woman muttering incantations into a swirling void. "What witchcraft is this?" he asked the homely woman. Turning, the woman began to glow. Her bland features melted away, revealing a stunning figure with long flowing black hair and piercing blue eyes. "My witchcraft?" She laughed. "And you are?" Gronders asked, unimpressed. "Luna, the jailer of souls." She smiled. "And what about you, fat man?" "Gronders, lord of the tormentors." Gronders boomed, rubbing his fat hand through his hair. His sandy complexion contrasted sharply with his stylish black suit. "Tormentors?" Luna asked, striding over to Gronders. She stared deep into his eyes, and Gronders felt her absorbing all the information in his skull. Within seconds, the fat demon fell to the floor, vanquished. "Well, when you don't have a soul, I'll just take your powers," Luna said, licking her bright red lips. "And now let's see where my prison break is heading now." Billy mooched back upstairs to the attic. The sisters had chewed her out good and proper. At least it was only them in the manor just now. The rest of the extended Halliwell family was away visiting the sisters' dad on Phoebe's recommendation. Perhaps she had sensed something. Billy wondered. Reaching the attic, Billy moved over to the Book of Shadows, turning the pages. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, only that she'd find it here. Luna smiled at the old crone who was staring at her. The look of disbelief on the old hag's face was enough to convince Luna that she may even keel over and die on the spot. "I vanquished you," the crone croaked. "Not well enough, apparently," Luna boasted. Reaching out, her hand shot out from within the mirror, dragging the old crone closer. Their faces close enough to be touching, the old crone tried one last incantation, but even as she opened her mouth, she found herself burning on the inside. Falling backwards, she tried to release the imprisoned demon's hands from hers, but as she fell backwards, she pulled the demon from the mirror and into the real world. As a final insult, Luna stepped over the fallen crone. "Nice soul. I'll take it," she said before her eyes glittered and the old crone disappeared. Turning her head towards the Halliwell manor, she smiled. "The power of 3 for 1. She breathed. Billy felt a shudder run down her spine. She looked again at the Book of Shadows. It often creeped her out. Closing the book, she decided it was just a pipe dream anyway. So she turned and headed downstairs. "What were you doing up there?" Piper asked. "Yeah, we get nervous when you plan things," Phoebe joked. "Leave her alone," Paige said, dumping down onto the couch beside the other two, bowl of popcorn in hand. "We have the house to ourselves for a couple of days, let's enjoy tonight. Isn't it still like 3 in the afternoon?" Piper laughed. "What do you care?" Phoebe puzzled. "Don't some of us still have to work?" "Not today. Today is sick day." Paige smiled. "Are you staying here or coming back later?" she asked Billy. "Later," Billy said before walking out the door. Sometimes the sisters were too weird. Luna grabbed the man from behind and broke his neck with a single twist. Taking his soul in with a single breath, she used the power she had stolen from Grondus to plant a tormentor in his body. Standing erect and straightening out its neck, the tormentor stood. "Take this to the blonde witch. Don't let her see you," she barked, handing the man shell a crystal and a piece of paper. Turning, the shell wobbled on its feet and then began to walk straight to Billy's dorm. Staring up at the sky, Luna began to use another ability she had stolen. She began to infect Billy's mind with self-doubt. Billy had gotten all the way to her dorm before she began to feel down. The same thing kept playing on her mind. At first she had thought it was jealousy, then ambition, back to jealousy, and finally she realized it was fear. The sisters, Piper especially, talked to her like she was a child, sometimes no older than the boys, and one of them was still in diapers. But without the power of 3, the sisters were the same as Billy, just ordinary witches, if there was such a thing. With a whoosh, she saw a young man being grabbed by the neck and dragged into an alleyway. Rushing to help him, she bounded into the blind alley only to see nothing. Hearing a clatter, she saw a black shape leap high onto the roof and leave the shivering shape of a young man with his neck broken. In the quiet of the alley, she heard a sharp clink as the shape dropped something as it fled. Moving to the sound, Billy found a sharp piece of crystal, shaped like a 3-sided pyramid, wrapped in a piece of oilcloth. She felt the crystal hum with power as she touched it, so she quickly wrapped it back up in the cloth, determined to show the sisters. Luna cackled as the tormentor told her of its ruse. With a click of her fingers, the tormentor then vanished in a dark haze. As Billy opened the door to her room, she dropped the crystal beside her computer and began to strip off. Almost naked, she ran quickly into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Letting the cold water heat up, she sat in just a pale blue bra and knickers, set looking at the crystal. Taking out her grandmother's diary, she began to search the pages until she came across a picture that looked similar. By this time, however, steam was rising from under the bathroom door, so grabbing her towel, Billy jumped into the shower. As soon as the young witch was safely engrossed in conditioning her hair, the crystal began to glow and Luna appeared. Grabbing the diary sitting on the desk, she began to use the old witch's power. Incanting softly, she changed the words on the page. Then, when she heard the young witch began to hum softly to herself, she channeled a spell into the crystal. Taking a step back, Luna faded into nothingness. Piper, Paige, and Phoebe sat together on the couch, buried under an enormous duvet, comfortable and warm. The movie over and TV unable to hold their interest, the sisters began to talk. "We really should stop being so hard on Billy," Paige said. "Yeah, it's because of her we can do this," Phoebe reminded. "But we still have to bail her out all the time," Piper countered. "We still have to use the power of 3 and we still have to fight demons. The only difference now is Billy does more of the groundwork." "Which is helping," the other two said in unison. "Okay, I'll try to stop reprimanding her all the time," Piper sighed. Billy stepped out of the shower and back into her bedroom, dry except for the towel around her head. Pulling on a loose pair of grey track pants and a long-sleeved tee, she returned to the crystal and her grandmother's diary. "A conduit crystal, yada yada yada," she half read out loud, pacing as she did so. Used to hold magical energy or combine spells, blah blah blah, is not good or evil and depends on its purpose, can be set up to do almost anything by someone with enough power. She concluded. Her grandmother often did this for artifacts she found. She tried to dissect them like Billy did. Not rely on old world-type descriptions from the Book of Shadows. I suppose, Billy mumbled out loud, running her hand up and down the surface of the crystal. Immediately her mind was back to the charmed ones. The power of 3, she could combine the sisters' powers and amplify them with her own. Her very own power of 3. She could let them finally retire for a normal life. Throwing on a pair of white sneakers and discarding the towel, Billy rushed out of the door. Paige and Phoebe were trying to convince the other as to who it should be to go and get the next tub of popcorn when Billy came bounding into the mansion. So somebody sure seems in a better mood. Paige laughed. I think I've got the solution to our final problem. Billy said, excited. Our final problem? Piper asked surreptitiously. You guys. Well, the power of 3. I think I've finally got a way for you guys to finally retire. Billy smiled. We tried that, remember? New identities. Phoebe stated. No, I've got a way to take your power, well, some of your power, and create a power of 3 that I can amplify with my own. So it'd be what? A power of 4? Paige asked. Sort of. Billy shrugged. Well, let's take a look at it. Piper said with a lot of skepticism. Drawing looks from Paige and Phoebe. Okay, maybe somebody else should do it first. I'll do it. I should be able to tell if there's any danger. Phoebe said. So where'd you find this, Billy? Paige asked as Billy passed the crystal to Phoebe. Some demon dropped it. Billy said as Phoebe unwrapped the oilcloth. Phoebe immediately dropped the oilcloth in fear. The crystal dropped onto the blanket and bounced beside the sisters' legs. It has to be a trap, Paige said. At once the charmed ones reached forward to try and brush the crystal away from them. But as each of the sisters touched the crystal, they were immediately pulled inside it. In a flash, the charmed ones were trapped inside the crystal with each of their faces showing on one side of the crystal each. The crystal then began to levitate off the sofa and towards Billy, who cartwheeled away from the floating crystal. Rather than chasing Billy, however, the crystal appeared to hang in midair. In a dark haze, Luna appeared in the main room of the mansion. Well, that was easier than expected, she said, taking the crystal in her hand. Holding it by its peak, she placed the flat bottom onto the top of a silver mace-like wand, leaving the sisters' heads each facing outwards from each other. Billy looked at Luna. The large woman seemed to resonate power, wearing her all-black dress that stopped at her knees. Billy looked at herself, wet hair in ragtails and all, and felt very insecure. As you should. Luna smiled. Billy immediately knew that her feelings, as well as the crystal, were because of this demon. I'm not afraid of you, Billy said, stepping toward Luna. Child, I have the charmed ones. I have no need for you anymore, Luna said. Well, vanquishing demons is what I do, so you've got me until I free the sisters, Billy said. Most of what you've learned about the crystal is true, child, Luna mocked. It really does have the ability to combine powers. And now I have the power of 3. Luna pointed the wand at Billy, who was immediately frozen to the spot. As well as their individual powers. Billy was then levitated up against the ceiling. Luna turned her back as Billy was released and crashed back onto the floor. Rising, Billy saw that Luna still had her back turned. Calling forth a lightning spell, she fired it at Luna, who turned and caught it without so much as even surprise on her face. Staring at Luna for another second, Billy took a deep breath and ran for the front door. Rushing towards the door, Billy held her arms out to push it open, only to have to try and backpedal as Luna orbed in front of her. Seeing no other opportunity, Billy leapt onto the landing and began to run up the stairs. Heading for the attic, she saw Luna appear in front of her. Throwing a smoke spell, Billy darted into one of the other rooms to hide and regroup. "Oh, come now, child, I have the power of 3. Luna mocked. "I can find you anywhere." She laughed as she orbed into the same room that Billy was hiding in. "And I find you here." She snorted. Billy looked around. She was in the boys' nursery. The child's bed along one wall, the changing table along the other, with the crib in the middle of the room and toys strewn around the floor. Billy looked for something that could be helpful but found nothing. If she had been in Paige or Phoebe's rooms, she could have at least found some vials. Turning to run again, Billy found herself frozen by a thrust of the wand. Inside, the crystal Piper's face winced as her power was again forcibly channeled from her. "And where do you think you're going?" Luna mocked. "You're in your room now." She gestured around. "All it needs is a little modification." Luna spun the wand and Billy felt the sisters' powers being drawn from them. Billy watched, horrified, as the changing table extended out and the crib melted into the floor and reformed around the child's bed, creating a bigger crib. Billy didn't like where this was going and was definitely thinking that being trapped in the wand was going to be preferable. "Seeing as you're the junior witch in training, I guess it's better if we take some of the stress away from you." Luna smiled wickedly. "Huggies," she commanded, and a half-open package of diapers appeared in her hands. This time it was Paige's turn to wince. Setting the package of unisex cruisers on the floor, Luna spun the wand again and the package seemed to swell outwards. "Pants," Luna commanded, and Billy found her pants had reappeared in Luna's hands. "Panties," Luna continued unrelentlessly, and Billy found herself naked from the waist down. Finally, Luna pointed the tip of the wand at the package of diapers, then at Billy. "Diaper," Luna said, stressing every syllable. Billy looked down disheartened. She could feel her legs being pushed outwards from the added bulk of the diaper, however she couldn't move them due to the fact that she was still frozen in place by Piper's power. The very fact that she could move her head meant, she hoped, that Luna's control over the sisters' powers was still less than absolute. "I'm sure you hope so," Luna taunted. Phoebe was wincing as Luna used her empathic abilities. "My control is not only absolute, it is unquestioned." She pointed the wand at Billy's midsection. "As you know, Piper could unfreeze certain body parts. Well, I can too. She could also make molecules force themselves apart and expand, which she usually used to blow up demons. Well, as I don't want to blow up my junior witch in training, I have just unfrozen your digestive tract and I'm expanding everything in your bowels. In fact, they should really be ready to pop by now," Luna commented. Billy couldn't feel anything. She was frozen. Not knowing what else to do to check, she turned her head downwards to inspect her own diaper. "Oh, you're not going to use it yet?" Luna smirked. Suddenly both Billy and Luna orbed back into the living room. Pointing the wand to one end of the living room, Billy found herself levitated to that corner of the living room. "Potty," Luna called. And the blue racing car potty appeared in the opposite corner of the living room. Luna gave the wand a twist and the potty increased in size. Billy didn't want to think at how accommodating it would be for her bottom, but she could guess at what was coming next. "I'm prepared to give my junior witch in training a sporting chance." Luna smiled. "You know that you're about to go. So all you have to do is make it to the potty and this nightmare will be over for you. Fail and my tormentors are hungry." Luna laughed. "And don't think you can just take off your diaper. It's being levitated up and on." Luna smirked. Billy then found she could move. She was also involuntarily moving her bowels. At first, as she sprinted towards the potty, she didn't know why she believed that Luna would keep her word, but she had to take that chance. If she behaved like a good captive, she might have a chance to stop Luna. It wasn't to be though, as Billy found herself filling her diaper for the first time since forever. The warm mess pulled at her diaper in oblique angles, causing it move in uncomfortable ways. The only respite that Billy had in the embarrassing ordeal was at least gravity was keeping most of the mess away from her skin. Suddenly Billy found herself orbed onto the changing table. The load in her diaper was suddenly pushed in and upwards by the hard contact of the plastic sheet beneath her legs. Billy gagged as she felt the mush spread around her most sensitive areas. Harness. Luna barked and Billy found herself webbed to the changing table by an expanded version of the boy's harness. Although she could move, Billy really wanted to try and avoid it because of the way her diaper was sitting. Pail, Luna commanded. Billy found the diaper pail sitting between her legs. Diaper. Luna spoke again. The soiled diaper around Billy's waist disappeared. Suddenly Billy found herself levitated off of the table. Then she felt water orb underneath her. Staring at the wand, Billy could see her reflection, but more importantly she could see the strain on the faces of the sisters as their powers were used again and again. Firstly to orb the water, then to levitate it and Billy, and then to expand and contract the water so she was cleaned without being touched. Billy fought back the tears as the water disappeared and Billy was deposited back onto the cold plastic of the changing table. You are still a bit damp. There's no point giving your diaper extra work to do. Luna taunted. She pointed the wand at Billy, who found herself once again frozen to the spot. Motioning with her hands, Luna called forth a tormentor, and although Billy couldn't see it, Grondez's face briefly flickered in the crystal beside the sisters. Tormentors were the worst kind of imps in the underworld. Unlike most demons, they fed off negative emotions. Also, unlike most, once they fed, their power was then withdrawn from them and passed into their master. It was the reason that Grondez had become so fat, but with them powering the wand, Luna could use them to draw the power of 3 almost continuously. Tormentors had no fixed form, though their normal was a black shadow-like creature with 2 beady sliver eyes. However, they could react to their surroundings and take on almost any form, save for their eyes, which would always remain a haunting silver. Tormentors were not as mindless as imps, which was one of the reasons they were feared more. They were vicious, scheming and nasty, and these were traits that Luna would only encourage. As the tormentor approached Billy, its darting eyes absorbed her predicament and its body contracted on itself, rearranging into a young girl, maybe 9 or 10. She had long sandy hair and wore what was very close to an Alice in Wonderland costume except in red. Stepping beside Luna, the tormentor bowed her head. "No, you need to be older to be a babysitter." Luna spoke quietly. The tormentor began to age and grow until it appeared to be around 16. The costume remained in a similar theme except that the skirt got shorter and the blouse underneath became tighter, as if to emphasize a blossoming teen. "Perfect." Luna smiled. "Wipes." She ordered, and a quarter-full package of baby wipes appeared in her hands. "I'll let you finish diapering my junior witch in training," she said, turning, "and don't make it pleasant for her." Luna laughed as she orbed a throne into the nursery. Sitting upon it, she held out the package of baby wipes. Taking the package of baby wipes, the tormentor turned towards Billy, who now found herself unfrozen. Kicking her legs apart, she tried to think of any spell that could get her out of this, but with her hands harnessed down by her waist she would have to verbalize the spell, and at this particular moment in time she couldn't really concentrate on thinking one up. Trying to buck herself off of the changing table, Billy became more and more desperate, and as she did so the tormentor appeared to be growing more and more powerful. Realizing the full futility of her situation, Billy stopped and sagged her head. This was going to be horrendous. "Oh, don't stop, Junior." The tormentor laughed as it approached Billy. "The more you squirm, the more I like it." Billy winced with each movement of the baby wipe. The smell filled her nostrils and the texture of the wipe was creepily gentle. As her legs were lowered, Billy realized that the tormentor had finished with her behind. Shuddering at this thought, Billy tried to clamp her legs together. The tormentor simply moved its fist from holding her ankles together, pushing them apart with 3 fingers. Even though the demon only held her ankles together with its thumb and pinky, Billy could still not kick free of its grasp. As the demon slid its free hand down the inside of her thigh, Billy felt what she thought was utter humiliation. "I don't think it's a good idea for babies to have hair down here," the tormentor stated. "That's a good point," Luna agreed. "Don't you agree, Junior?" she taunted Billy. Billy had no answer for either of the demons. Well, at least one that was going to help her plight. "I asked you if you agreed with your nanny. If you can't answer, Junior, then I can only deduce that you have no objections." Luna smiled. She lifted the wand and spun it around. As the baby wipes moved over her, Billy could only watch with dismay as her hair was removed. She had been wrong before. This was utter humiliation. "Good job." Luna nodded to the tormentor, which disappeared in a black haze. "Now I guess we have to go for the finishing touch." Luna smiled. "Diaper," she commanded, and Billy found herself once again in overgrown Huggies. As Billy found herself levitated into a standing position, she saw her reflection in the crystal. She looked helpless, like an infant in fact. Her hair had dried raggedly, her top was old and worn, the harness constricted her movements and kept her hands pressed down by her sides, and her diaper was fastened snugly around her waist. Even the white sneakers on her feet looked childish now. As Luna raised the wand to Billy, there was a knock at the door. Levitating Billy into the crib, Luna orbed downstairs, leaving the helpless witch to wallow in self-pity. To Phoebe it appeared as if the darkness was subsiding. Continuing her track towards the apparent light source, she found herself staring at a ring of floating bodies surrounding what appeared to be a mirror. In the middle of the ring, Piper and Paige floated with their jaws wide with astonishment. "What's going on?" Phoebe asked. "Billy is being tormented by this demon so she can use our powers constantly," Piper stated. "But I don't feel anything," Phoebe said, puzzled. "We're not really here," Piper explained. "From what we've been able to gather." She gestured to the other light sources. "This demon has got us imprisoned in her wand. She calls herself Luna, the jailer of souls, and she uses the souls she's trapped for her own devices. Basically, she's using our powers and our knowledge to punish Billy," Paige added. "Can it be that bad?" Phoebe asked. "See for yourself," Piper said, moving to the side so Phoebe could see the mirror. Phoebe watched as Billy was diapered, then levitated into a giant crib, whilst harnessed so she couldn't move, and left by the demon. "That's horrible," Phoebe gasped. "Yeah, well, that's the nice stuff," Piper shuddered. "And the worst part is," Paige began, "that she's stuck in our house. Even though the boys are away, we've still got plenty of their clothes lying around." "Oh no," Phoebe gasped. "What happens if she finds our old stuff in the attic?" "Nobody should ever be forced to wear those sailor suits again," Piper shuddered. "And all of our old booties, mittens, and those plastic pants." "Stop," Phoebe said, shaking her head. "What if this demon can hear us?" Suddenly the sisters felt very worried for the young witch. Luna disguised herself as Paige and answered the door. It was some random salesman with the latest in vacuum technology. So powerful that it could lift up a bowling ball. "Well," Luna had started, "I do love power." She smiled as she drained the man of his soul. Billy found herself stuck on her knees. As soon as Luna had dropped her, she had slipped on the plastic and tumbled forward. The crib walls were too high to climb out of, and she couldn't use magic to leap out of them because the bars stopped to close to the ceiling. What was worse was that when she had tumbled forward, Billy had found she had to slither across to the crib wall, push her chest against it to climb up. This had begun to work her diaper lower on her body, so the only way she could pull it back up was to go back onto her knees and stay there. At least with the demon gone, she could begin plotting a spell to get her out. Before her mind could really get to work, Billy found herself orbed into the attic. Staring at the Book of Shadows longingly, Billy found herself frozen to the ground. "It appears that the charmed ones don't like you very much, Junior," Luna laughed. They have just told me where to find some good old-fashioned girly girl clothing for you. Luna spun the wand at old wardrobe in the back of the attic. As they parted, a couple of musty-looking chests came into view. The chests then sprung open and lines of baby clothing, enough for all three sisters, began to levitate out of the chests and land neatly in a rows in front of Billy. Pinks, polka dots, yellows, lilacs, and strawberry reds were all present in clothes that would be much too small to fit, but Billy knew that wouldn't really be a problem. After all, the diaper bunching around her waist had come out of a normal package. Billy then saw baby equipment the boys had outgrown orb in front of her just long enough for Billy to see it and wince before it orbed somewhere else. Reappearing in the living room, Billy found she could move. However, she was now in the playpen in the corner of the room. Luna walked up to the bars of the pen. "Harness," she commanded, and Billy found that she was once again able to move her arms. Luna then smiled. "I've been thinking of the best way to ensure that my junior witch in training doesn't get too big for her britches and try to start casting spells against me," Luna informed Billy. "And of course I've come up with a perfect solution," she said, holding up a pair of mittens connected via a length of cord in one hand. In the other she held a pacifier. Letting go of the two objects, they both stopped in mid-air, whether frozen or simply levitated Billy didn't know. All she knew that whatever power Luna had over messing with people's heads, she was using now because she could concentrate on nothing else. Luna then picked up her wand and spun it at the two garments. "Pacifier," she commanded, and Billy found the pacifier between her lips and clipped onto her shirt via a pink Minnie Mouse clip. "Mittens," Luna spoke again. This time Billy found her hands placed inside the white mittens and the cord was placed underneath her shirt. Suddenly Billy's head became clear. Not caring about mittens or pacifiers, she aimed a lightning bolt spell at Luna. The mittens sparked as the lightning discharged, but they did not rip. Instead, Billy watched as the lightning traveled up from one mitten across the cord and down through the other. Without warning, Billy's gloved hand raised itself up and planted itself firmly against the back of her diaper. Billy looked at her padded hand as if it had betrayed her. She had just spanked herself, hard. She turned to glower at Luna, who simply smirked, causing Billy's anger to boil over. Spitting out the pacifier, Billy began to chant an incantation. As she reached the climax of the spell, she found pacifier hovering just inches from her lips. Her eyes wide, she watched as the end of the pacifier began to glow. Suddenly it shot into her mouth and Billy felt the jolt of a spell run through her. It was then she found herself wailing. Not an adult cry, but a helpless babyish cry that was so immature that Billy just felt so little, stupid and helpless, and the tears came as she subsided to deep gulping breaths. Billy then found herself orbed right in front of Luna, who took hold of her diaper and checked it. "A spanked ass, a little cranky tantrum, but there's nothing downstairs." Luna smiled, releasing the waistband of Billy's diaper and giving it a pat. "Maybe what you need is a makeover." Luna smiled. A dark haze filled the living room, and as three tormentors were summoned into the living room. In their shadow forms they stared at Billy with their unblinking silver eyes. Then they began to reform. Their bodies shrunk down and moved into the colored spectrum. Each tormentor began to morph into preteen girl. The first became a small blonde girl about 11 or 12, wearing a black and white striped crop top and white pants. The second tormentor sprouted mousy brown hair from underneath a green-colored straw hat. She was wearing a summery outfit consisting of a dual-cut top with a soft green stripe along the top. It was white underneath the green stripe and finished just above the tormentor's 3/4-length green pants. The last tormentor molded itself into a girl slightly older than the other two. Possibly 13 or 14, not much older, but a definite amount. This tormentor transformed itself into a having red hair, hung in pigtails, whilst wearing a white USA Soccer shirt and pink track pants. The demons then rounded on a still frozen Billy, eyeing her with haunting silver eyes. The two younger tormentors then swiped at Billy's legs, knocking her down to their size, whilst the oldest grabbed at Billy's top. Ripping it off of Billy's back, the redhead then stuffed the top down the back of Billy's diaper. Tears formed in Billy's eyes as she was forced to stand in front of Luna in nothing but a bra and a diaper. With the amount of use those diapers are going to get, I think it'll be better if Junior can't actually remove them. Luna smiled. Pointing the wand at Billy, she began to chant. Your powers are nullified in those baby clothes. They feed energy to me, so my magic grows. I'll now abuse the power of 3. And bond you into diapers, you helpless baby. Billy found herself awash with magical energy. Staring down at her diaper, it seemed to fasten itself to her skin, like egg sticking to an unoiled frying pan. Sliding her mittened hand against the waistband of the diaper, Billy found she was completely unable to pull it away from her skin. She lifted her head up to glower at Luna, but all she found instead were the 3 tormentors staring at her. Now that she could move, however, Billy wasn't exactly going to hang around and wait to see what they had planned. Turning, she started to sprint for the door. Baby bouncer, Luna commanded. Billy tried to force what had just happened out of her mind. She knew, deep down, that she had just been placed in a baby bouncer, and whilst her feet hit the ground and the bungee cords hadn't gone slack yet, she wasn't hopeful of how long that situation would last for. As the cords went tight, Billy found herself being propelled backwards and up. Her back slapped against the ceiling before she was dumped unceremoniously onto her face on the floor. The cords then tightened up more and Billy found her feet lifted to just off the floor, meaning she was once again captive. Now I think it might be best if you stop running away all the time, Luna mocked, moving inches from Billy's face. Billy tried to kick and punch forward, but the baby bouncer held her too rigidly beneath her arms and her legs too high off the ground, so she ended up performing a cycling motion in mid-air. Now, temper. Luna smiled. If you're getting cranky, then perhaps you have a fever. And you don't want me checking for one of those, do you? Luna asked. Billy thought on this for a second, then stopped. Good baby, Luna patronized. Turning to the tormentors, Luna laughed. We will have to go shopping to get somebody some more diapers. She jerked her head back to Billy. Whatever you dress her in will be fine. But is she so sad? Perhaps you should dress her in something special to lift her spirits. Luna affected concern as she orbed out of the room. Piper, Phoebe, and Paige clung to each other as the power of 3 was forcibly drawn from them. Convulsing, Paige felt like she was on fire as her greatest gift was used to demean her young charge again. We have to stop this, Phoebe said, recovering first. That's pretty obvious, Piper stated flatly. But how? We're not even here, we're just some memories. We don't know where our bodies are, and apparently our souls are somewhere different. Paige shrugged, exasperated. Perhaps I could be of assistance, a blonde-haired fat man asked. The 3 tormentors crowded around Billy. She hung her head in shame as the abominations unceremoniously dumped her out of the baby bouncer and onto the floor. Despite their small size, the demons were blessed with the usual increased strength and stamina. Finding a pair of hands down her diaper, Billy started to turn around only to have another set of hands clamp around her waist and hold her steadily in place. Taking the ripped top out of Billy's diaper, the tormentors held it up in front of Billy. I don't think she can really wear this again, the redhead told the others. You're right, the other 2 agreed. Oh well, I guess we had better go up to Junior's nursery and get her ready to go.